Imagine you open your company's dashboard, right? And the system says a major client owes you $1,000.
Which is pretty standard, just a normal Tuesday morning for most business owners.
Yeah, exactly. It's right there in bold numbers. But then you export the ledger, add up their invoices by hand, and the total is only 800.
Oof. And that is where the cold sweat really kicks in.
Right. Somewhere deep inside your database architecture, there is a ghost. Just a $200 phantom discrepancy. And if you've ever managed a financial system, you know that exact feeling.
Oh, for sure. Because historically, finding that missing $200 meant an accountant spending, 3 days locked in a room just doing endless VLOOKUPs across exported CSV files.
Absolute nightmare. But today, we're looking at an accounting platform that doesn't just hunt those ghost discrepancies down. It actually hands you the surgical tools to cut them out of your core code.
Which is a really bold proposition. Because today's source material, a feature release document for APS accounting and stock control, outlines a totally different approach. They are throwing artificial intelligence directly at the deepest, most complex database errors a business can face.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today isn't just to talk about AI as some, abstract concept.
Right, we want to look at the nuts and bolts.
Exactly. We're looking at how this system bridges that massive, chaotic gap between messy, real-world retail problems and high-level software architecture. And to understand this AI database surgeon they've built, we really have to start where the chaos originates.
Yeah, you have to look at the hardware on the front lines. I mean, the point of sale.
Checkout counter.
Exactly. The checkout counter is the ultimate stress test for any system. It's where the cold, digital logic of a database completely collides with human unpredictability. Speed is literally everything there.
And one of the most frustrating things for a cashier is when that speed just hits a brick wall. So APS introduced a pause and resume feature for the point of sale.
Which is huge.
It is structurally. Think about what happens when someone at the front of a busy grocery line realizes they forgot their wallet in the car.
Oh, I've been that person. It's the worst.
Right. Normally, the cashier's just paralyzed, the transaction is half scanned, the system is locked, waiting for payment, and the line completely backs up behind you.
Because from an architectural standpoint, that's a session state problem. The software has an open transaction that's basically holding inventory in limbo.
Yeah.
What APS allows the cashier to do is essentially park that session state in the background without committing it to the permanent ledger.
They just hit pause. The screen clears. They ring up the next 3 customers. And when the free guy runs back in with his wallet, the system retrieves that exact state. So they just resume.
It's so smart because it acknowledges that human beings do not follow linear, perfectly optimized workflows. We are messy.
We are very messy. But my absolute favorite detail in these checkout features is how they're handling printers.
Oh, the browser print spooler.
Yes. If you are listening to this and you've ever tried to run a web-based point-of-sale system, you know the absolute nightmare of the browser print spooler.
Well, because the browser sandbox is intentionally designed to isolate web pages from your local hardware, right, for security, which is great when you're just browsing the internet. But it's terrible when you need a thermal receipt printer to fire instantly.
Exactly. So APS solved this by building a one-click Windows batch agent.
Nice.
Instead of dealing with the browser's native print pop-up, where you click print, wait for the PDF preview, select your printer from a drop-down, and hit print again, this local agent acts as a direct bridge.
It just catches the print command and routes it straight to a USB or network printer, just completely bypassing the browser's UI.
It's brilliant. And the mechanism there is fascinating because they are basically hooking directly into the operating system's hardware APIs. And they didn't even stop there.
No, they added the automatic Bluetooth paper with detection, too.
Right. So if a store swaps a 58mm receipt printer for an 80mm one, the system just seamlessly detects the hardware change. It reformats the receipt payload instantly.
It's wild. You combine that with direct USB thermal printing capabilities and this new global save and print button across all transaction dialogues, and you fundamentally change the throughput of a checkout lane.
I mean, just think about the cumulative time saved. If you eliminate 3 seconds of fighting with a browser print dialogue, and a cashier does that, 200 times a shift.
You are reclaiming hours of labor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But speeding up the checkout line actually introduces this massive new vulnerability. If a cashier is flying through transactions with instant save and print buttons, the rate of human error is going to skyrocket.
which is the classic trade-off in systems design. Velocity almost always comes at the expense of accuracy.
Yeah.
And when you were dealing with inventory and accounting ledgers, a tiny data entry mistake at the register can compound into a massive financial headache at the end of the quarter.
Which perfectly sets up the next phase of his update. Because they focus really heavily on back-end constraints, they are building some very aggressive financial guardrails.
Like with the opening balances.
Yes, they completely overhauled how they handle opening balances. When a business migrates to APS or starts a new fiscal year, they collect opening balances for customers or suppliers.
Right.
Now the system forces the unpaid remainder of that opening balance to act as the actual balance in all real-time reports.
That completely eliminates the danger of making decisions on theoretical money. If you have historical data clashing with current data, the system just forces reality to the surface.
They also moved customer and supplier dues directly onto the dashboard overview cards, which sounds like a simple UI tweak.
But it's really not. Architecturally, keeping an aggregated total of outstanding dues updated in real time on a dashboard without hanging the entire system, that means they are likely using some very efficient materialized views, or at least some heavy caching layers.
Definitely. And they're also implementing hard stops on transactions.
Yeah.
The system will actively block credit sales that exceed a customer's allowed limit.
Which makes sense.
But I noticed they applied this exact same logic to the supply side too. They added a credit limit field to supplier records, literally blocking the business's own purchasing managers from buying if it exceeds the limit.
See, I'd argue that is an even more critical feature than the customer limit. We all instinctively want to stop customers from owing us too much money, right?
Right, that's just basic business.
But self-imposed constraints require a ton of discipline. By hard-coding supplier credit limits into the software, the system prevents a business from over-leveraging itself.
So if company policy says you can't carry more than $50,000 in debt with a specific vendor, the software simply won't let a road floor manager submit a purchase order that breaches that cap.
Exactly. It takes the human discipline out of the equation.
And these guardrails extend to currency too. They built in deep foreign currency support for accounts and journal entries. They even included a dedicated screen to handle foreign exchange revaluation and translation differences.
Which, if you think about it, is a mathematical nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. If you buy inventory on Tuesday at one exchange rate and pay the invoice on Friday at a totally different rate, the database has to reconcile that gap.
Right. It requires a dedicated ledger just to track the delta created by fluctuating fiat currency.
But speaking of math nightmares, I really want to talk about decimals.
Oh, the independent decimal precision.
Yes, because the update introduces this feature that allows a user to set different decimal places for selling prices versus cost prices. And at first glance, I thought, why on earth would you need that?
Right.
I mean, isn't a dollar just a dollar? Dollars and cents. 2 decimal places. Why complicate it?
What's fascinating here is how this exposes the mechanics of floating point math in software architecture. If you've ever dealt with databases handling currency, you know that rounding errors are basically the enemy.
Okay, let's walk through that for the listener. Why does the cost price need more decimal places than the selling price?
Well, imagine a massive manufacturing or retail operation. Let's say you are buying raw materials, maybe a crate of 100,000 specialized screws.
Okay, got it.
You negotiate a bulk price for the whole crate, maybe $150. When the database divides that cost to calculate the inventory value of a single screw, the cost per unit is $0.0015.
Wow. Okay, so that requires 4 decimal places just to represent accurately.
Precisely. Now, if the database architecture forced every financial field to default to standard currency formats, just 2 decimal places, it would have to round that number.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, it might round 0.0015 down to 0. Suddenly, the system thinks your cost of goods sold for that item is literally nothing.
So your profit margins look incredible on paper, but they're entirely fictional.
Exactly. Or, conversely, it rounds it up to 1 cent. And suddenly your system thinks your inventory is vastly more expensive than it actually is.
In over 100,000 units, that rounding error just completely destroys your financial reporting.
But on the retail side, when a customer walks in to buy 10 of those screws, you're selling them for 5 cents each. You only need 2 decimal places for the transaction because the physical currency exchange relies on 2 decimal places.
That makes total sense. So by decoupling the precision of the cost ledger from the sales ledger, APS essentially prevents compounding margin collapse at the database level.
It's an incredibly thoughtful piece of engineering.
It really is. And they've bolstered that visibility elsewhere too. Date range filters are now active for customer collection and supplier payment reports.
which is super helpful for cash flow tracking.
Right. And they solved a huge context switching problem.
Yeah.
You can now expand an invoice directly within an account statement to see the individual line items.
Oh, I love that.
You don't have to navigate away, load a whole new screen, and lose your train of thought just to see what a customer bought.
It keeps the user entirely focused on the analysis. No tab fatigue.
Exactly. But here is the reality check.
Hmm.
You can have independent decimal precision. You can bypass the print spooler. You can have strict credit limits.
But things still break.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Guardrails do not fix data that is already corrupted. In any distributed system, a network drop during a synchronization or a race condition where two cashiers hit enter at the exact same millisecond it happens.
Oh, it always happens. Or a cache invalidation error. Eventually, the ledger is going to desync.
Which brings us back to that ghost discrepancy we started with at the beginning. The $1,000 balance versus the $800 invoice total.
Right. And this is where APS introduces the Smart Doctor.
Yes. In Arabic, it's Al-Tabib Al-Zaki. It is an AI database wizard located in the administration sidebar, and it is strictly restricted to admins and supervisors.
As it should be.
Definitely. And what this tool does is actively hunt down those deep structural corruptions.
It isolates its diagnostic checks by company and by fiscal year, which is absolutely vital for multi-entity operations. And it basically looks for the cardinal sins of database management.
Right. It scans for mismatched customer balances, inventory quantities that have inexplicably dropped below zero, unbalanced journal entries where debits don't equal credits. Well, debits and credits just not matching up.
Duplicate invoice numbers, too.
Yes. Duplicates, hidden transactions that exist in the raw tables but aren't rendering in the UI, and orphaned payment records. So, going back to our example, customer Souk 1 shows a balance of 1,000, but invoices total 800.
The Smart Doctor runs a diagnostic query and displays both of those numbers side by side.
But here's where it gets really interesting. It doesn't just calculate the difference.
No, it goes way further.
The AI suggests the specific SQL code to fix the database. It literally outputs the update command, targeting the exact row in the specific table to rewrite the broken value.
Which is an immense technical leap. It's not just a reporting tool anymore.
Look, if you're listening to this and you've ever managed a production database, you're probably screaming in your car right now.
I know, I would be.
The idea of an AI dynamically writing SQL update commands to alter a live financial ledger sounds like an absolute nightmare. If an AI hallucinates a command or targets the wrong primary key, it could permanently destroy the company's accounting history.
That skepticism is entirely warranted. A rogue AI in a core ledger is an existential threat to a business. But this is where the architecture of the Smart Doctor is so critical.
It's all about the constraints.
Exactly. It acts strictly as an advisor, not an autonomous agent. The AI can run the diagnostic select queries, it can identify the discrepancy, and it can draft the update statement.
But it can't run it.
Right. It is hard-locked from executing anything. It explicitly waits for a human administrator to review the raw code and provide final authorization.
It's handing the human the scalpel, pointing exactly where the tumor is, but demanding the human make the incision.
That's a great way to put it. It keeps the human liability in the loop, and the update notes are very transparent about the limitations of this AI, too.
Yeah, it's highly specialized.
It won't fix UI or display bugs. If a drop-down menu is rendering twice on a web page, the Smart Doctor won't even touch it. It does not write new features. It is purely a surgeon for broken financial data.
But the AI integration doesn't actually stop in the database layer. They're also applying artificial intelligence to the physical reality of the warehouse.
Oh, the inventory management side.
Yeah, which is notoriously grueling. Doing physical stock counts usually involves, walking around with clipboards and then manually keying thousands of numbers into a system.
It's a massive bottleneck, and it introduces immense data entry fatigue, which leads to more errors.
But APS introduced an AI assistant that can import physical inventory sheets and automatically create the counting entries.
And architecturally, that means it's not just doing a simple, perfectly formatted CSV upload.
Right.
It's using AI to parse potentially unstructured data, mapping fuzzy item descriptions or messy formats back to the canonical database IDs. It's so powerful. They've also rolled out a new physical stock counting page to support this. Users can input quantities and search for items by manual typing or directly via barcode scanning.
And once that data is aggregated, the filtering becomes incredibly useful.
You can filter the entire inventory list by specific quantity ranges or by stock status. You can instantly query everything with a positive balance, isolate everything that's hit exactly zero, or find the anomalies that have somehow drifted into a negative balance.
It gives a warehouse manager total command over the physical reality of their stock.
And they applied that same level of granularity to the financial reporting. Sales and summary reports can now be filtered by payment method, which is essential for cash flow analysis.
And the summaries now explicitly display total returns, which is great visibility.
Definitely. And one of the most practical time savers they introduced is transaction cloning. Users can now clone accounting journal entries and stock transactions with the added option to change the transaction type during the clone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to ask, why build a cloning tool? To save time, right?
Exactly, because in the real world, businesses run on repetitive patterns. You might pay the same vendor for the same materials every single week.
Yeah, forcing a human being to rekey 30 line items every Friday is just a waste of human potential.
Transaction cloning, combined with the AI importing tools, turns hours of mind-numbing data entry into a process that takes mere seconds.
So what does this all actually mean for you, the listener? We started this deep dive looking at a feature release document, but what we've actually uncovered is a masterclass in pragmatic software architecture.
APS accounting and stock control isn't just building abstract tools in a vacuum, they are designing for the reality of human friction.
They are acknowledging that internet browsers get in the way of receipt printers, that floating point math can absolutely destroy bulk margins.
And that ultimately, even the best guardrails fail, requiring sophisticated AI-driven surgical tools to repair the core database.
It's a system built for the trenches. For those of you listening who are fighting these database ghosts, or if you're a tech enthusiast who just appreciates brilliantly designed architecture, you really need to look into this platform.
It's definitely worth checking out.
It was developed by IT manager Yasser Al-Mohana. They are offering a 15-day free trial right now, which you can find at appsap.org. That's APSAPP at top LCO. Or if you want to speak directly to their team, you can reach out via WhatsApp or phone at 00020-034-1901.
It is definitely worth analyzing how they've structured these solutions. And honestly, this raises an important question, one that I think we all have to grapple with as we watch these systems evolve.
Ooh, lay it on us. What are you thinking?
Well, as tools like Al-Tabib Al-Zaki, the smart doctor, become increasingly sophisticated at diagnosing complex ledger corruptions and writing the exact SQL code to repair them, the role of the human fundamentally shifts.
Okay, yeah.
We are moving from humans actively balancing the books to humans merely supervising the AI that balances the books.
That's a huge shift.
Right. So at what point does the system becomes so reliable at catching and fixing its own errors that the human stops double-checking the AI's math and just blindly clicks approve?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate paradox of automation. When the software survival guide becomes too good, we might just forget how to survive without it.
Exactly.
It's an incredible evolution to witness. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.